Welcome to the Lucentlands podcast. We have identified the need for a platform where industry leaders and innovators in the agricultural sector can share their stories and inspire others. We hope you enjoy listening to this as much as we enjoyed speaking to these people. Welcome.
Okay, so Nic, it's nice to be here with you on your farm in Woolsley, and we would just like to have a nice chat to you and hear about who is Nic Dicey and how does Nic Dicey fit in with Hortgro and how does the Dicey family fit in with the fruit industry. So maybe you want to start about how did you become involved in the fruit industry and a little bit further back than that.
Thanks, Louise, and welcome to La Plaisante, which is our family farm. It's a fourth generation farm. My great-grandfather started farming in South Africa, in the Extrava, in 1893. He started the Cape Orchard Company, and they farmed in the Extrava. He was a real pioneer in the industry. And he had 6 sons, and I'm one of the descendants from there. We are 3 brothers that farm together, and we do our bit here. We've been farming on La Plaisante the family has been since 1920. And after my dad passed in 1992, we took over the farm, and a lot of people said, geez, how do you guys farm together as brothers, and does it all work out? It seems to have worked out. I think we've got huge respect for our forefathers, for what they did, and it helps to, if you think of that way, and you think the sacrifices they made and the pioneering work they did, then I think it will be disrespectful to them to stuff all this up. We need to make sure we make a success of it. So that's the background to how we came into farming. My journey was, I was in school in Cape Town, then I went to Stellenbosch University. I did a BCom degree there with the idea to come farming. My eldest brother Anthony had already studied a BSc agriculture, so thought he could do the technical stuff. And then my middle brother also did a BCom. And then I did my BCom. My dad's wish or agreement with us, after university, we first had to go and do an apprenticeship or go and work somewhere else to go find out a few things, how other people do it before we came back to the farm. So both Anthony and I worked at Elgin Orchards in Grabouw under Keith Downs. He was quite a tough taskmaster. I think many people in the industry would agree with that. But geez, did we learn a lot from him. My mission there was to learn as much as possible. And his toughness, together with his knowledge, really helped us tremendously. To this day, Anthony and I still talk about the things we learned at Elgin Orchards, things we learned from Keith Downs. So he'll always be remembered by us. And Peter, my middle brother, worked on Greymead, and he worked under Keith's brother Mike, and similar experiences for him there. So we came back, and since then we grow pears, we grow peaches, we plums. We used to have wine grapes, but we quickly sort of got out of that, and we decided that wasn't going anywhere. And so now we're predominantly pear farmers, and we've branched into plums and peaches. So we started off actively in 92. Both my brothers had worked with my dad before he died. And from the beginning, we felt that we needed to be in control of our own destiny. And part of that is being involved with the organizational industry structures. And so my dad had been part of the Canned Fruit Producers Association in those days. And Anthony was elected to actually succeed him on that board, to where he's today the chairman of the Canned Fruit Producers Association. And so he looks after that side of the industry. And well, as a young farmer, I was keen to learn. And early on in the 2000s, I was elected to represent the Woolsey area after being part of the crop estimate committee that under the old Unifruco was in place. And I was elected to represent the Woolsey area on SAPA, as it was called then. It subsequently been renamed to Hortgro pome. And in 2006, I was elected as chairman of Hortgro of SAPA. And to this day, I'm still there. I'm still chairman of Hortgro pome, and I'm also chairman of Hortgro. And yeah, you know, I've just been so involved in industry on industry matters. It's been an honor to be there. I've really learned a lot. I've really, you know, there's a team there that really makes it easy to be part of the organization. And you know, as one gets involved in these things, there's so many different branches of industry structures and industry organizations and different organizations that come across your path. So I've been involved in SIZA, I've been in Coldevco, I'm the current chairman of SIZA, the Sustainable Initiative of South Africa, which looks at the ethical and the environmental standards that we have in the agricultural sector. Yeah, it's extremely fulfilling. We are lucky that we have the time to be able to spend on industry matters. It takes quite a bit of our time, but you know, the longer you do it, the easier it becomes. The more you know how to split your time between industry matters and your own business. So yeah, that's where I am at the moment, as far as industry structures and as I said, I've been there for long. We have a very capable team. There are very capable board members that I really do tap into to make my life, my job much easier there. And then obviously the personnel, at Hortgro are extremely competent. You've got Anton Rabe, you've got Louis van Sale, you've got Hugh Campbell, of the senior ones, and you've got Jacques Duprier, Mariette Kotze, and the whole personnel there are extremely competent. You know, they really put the industry first. And it also makes my job as the chair of the board much easier, and it allows me to be part of that organization.
Fantastic. For the uninitiated, for people who are not quite sure, could you just give us a little bit more of detail of who or what is Hortgro? Give us a broader explanation of the body and who they are and what they do.
Hortgro is the industry commodity structure that looks after research, market access. It has an admin function, communication within the broader industry and outside. It looks after transformation aspects, and with the emphasis that, you know, each production unit needs some of these things to happen for them to be to operate in an easier environment. You know, in the end, we as producers, all we want to do is we want to farm, and we need to be able to do it without being inhibited by certain things. In that way, Hortgro, the producers will identify areas of research that needs to be done, and Hortgro will be the custodian of, through various structures. You've got a Hortgro science, and there you've got a structure that looks after research. You know, they are very technically minded, and they are the ones that will oversee the technical or the research program. Something like market access is becoming more and more critical. Back in the old days, it was, you know, can we export to a certain country? No, we can't. Okay, there needs to be a certain process that needs to happen. Individual producers don't have the ability to do that. They don't have the scale to do that. So Hortgro doesn't, in conjunction with, say, the Department of Agriculture, will do that will play that function for them. So we will open new markets for them. Importantly, we also need to retain markets that have been opened. You know, for various reasons, markets become closed to different countries for whatever reasons. You know, there's different phyto reasons that needs an organization like Hortgro just to renegotiate and actually help the Department of Agriculture, because they are the final signees of any trade relationship between two different countries. But since, you know, the last couple of years, our market access has grown into an ability to get product to the market. We've seen in the last year or two, logistics has played a major role in, or the pressures on logistics played a major role in issues that are not conducive to free trade. And Hortgro has had to step in on behalf of its producers with the different role players to make life a bit easier for producers in that. So then you have things like general communication. What does our industry do? What's the value of our industry? Not necessarily only in monetary, but also in socio-economic terms. So Hortgro, I always like to say that Hortgro creates an enabling environment for producers to flourish in the stuff that they, in the areas that they know how to do. We know how to farm. South Africa is, I believe, some of the best farmers in the world. We farm often on marginal soils in difficult climate conditions, and still I think we produce a product of the highest quality, and a product that is sought after in many markets. But for that to happen, a lot of other things need to happen, and that's where an organization like Hortgro would come into. So it provides secretarial services. So a levy will be collected from all producers, a statutory levy that runs on a 4-year cycle, and with that they do the services that I've mentioned before. Under the Hortgro umbrella, you've got the Hortgro pome, which looks specifically after apple and pear issues, and then you have Hortgro stone, which looks specifically after plums and peaches and nectarines and cherries and apricots. And
does the new almond stuff also fall under that? Because I believe in the States they say that almonds is classified as stone fruit.
Yeah, we haven't got almonds as a industry structure yet, or as in that form. But it's still a relatively small industry. Almonds, they have a office at Hortgro, but they're pretty much still on their own. We felt that at that stage, we felt that they still all right to go on their own. We'll provide admin support for them from Hortgro's side. But these things, we've seen dried tree fruit come into the Hortgro stable. So you've got the raisins doing their own thing, but the dried tree fruit, specifically, obviously the peaches and then the pears, has come into the Hortgro stable when the dried tree or when dried fruit sort of split their organizational structures. So, but we've got to be careful that we can't be everything for everyone. You've got to be careful not to take on too much, and then you've got your focus. You lose your focus.
So you've mentioned the pome and the stone, and you spoke about almonds. What are the other commodities that are under the Hortgro? I think there's honeybush tea. Tell us about the others.
Then there are other commodities where Hortgro purely provides an admin and a secretarial service. So we're not involved in market access, and in it's purely a secretarial. We do their finances, and we'll do various secretarial services for them.
Besides the stone fruit and pome fruit, who are the other commodities that Hortgro provides services for?
Okay, besides those, we provide services for Cape Flora, the South African Pecanut Association, the Pomegranate Association of South Africa, and SA Olives, so for the Olive Association. And then Hortgro has various substructures, including Coldevco, Fruit Fly Africa, the Deciduous Fruit Industry Development Trust, Fruit Workers Development Trust, that it also provides services and support to. And these are all structures that add value to the industry, to the deciduous industry, so it's quite substantial. And once again, I come back to my statement where I'm talking about creating an enabling and creating an easier environment for producers to actually do what they love doing first, and that's producing and farming.
So all these the functionalities and the things that Hortgro offers on behalf of your main clients, your stone fruit and pome fruit growers, that is collected from a statutory levy, and that so growers are actually paying for all of this through the levy.
Yeah. What we do is we apply to the NAMC, the National Agricultural Marketing Council, for a statutory levy. There's a referendum that's held within our constituencies, and then we apply for a 4-year levy, or a levy that's applicable for 4 years, and then we start the process again. And we need to get buy-in from our industry. We need to get support from our industry for this levy, and we are never less than 90% support for this levy.
Excellent to hear.
Yeah, for this levy. And not everyone obviously votes, but we are quite happy that we have the majority, more than the majority support for the levy and for the work that we do. What we also do is prior to applying for the levy, we do what we call a roadshow, and it's something that not just prior that we test the waters continually with are we busy with the right things, and are we on the right track, and is there something else? Are we not? Are we busy keeping ourselves busy with stuff that's not in our mandate? And generally we get the support that we want. There are always producers that want a little bit more, a little bit less. Some people want more on research, some people want less on various other things. And the reality is that as an industry structure, Hortgro has had to get involved in areas that it previously didn't need to. That was previously things that were previously looked after by other institutions, let's say the Department of Agriculture. And we've had to really use some of our budget to get involved and spend money on non-traditional activities.
Have you got some examples?
One of them is very topical now, is the whole logistics issue. I mean, we've spent a lot of money and a lot of time on negotiating and communicating and consulting with Transnet, the port terminals, about the upcoming seasons during the past season, to make sure that they are up and running and that their systems are ready for our next season. A year ago, we especially the stone fruit, but actually through all the fruit kinds, there were major bottlenecks and major constraints at the harbour, and that has a massive impact on the profitability of our industry. And the positive aspect is that the negotiations and that we've had, the communication sessions that we've had with Transnet has really opened their eyes. They've realized the importance of the cold chain, of the need for fruit, whatever kind it is, to move through the harbour. We cannot afford to break the cold chain. We cannot afford for fruit to be standing on the side and not be loaded on ships. We cannot afford as a country for ships not to decide they don't want to come to Cape Town Harbour or any harbour in South Africa because the delays are too long. And I think we can see in the press quite clearly that it's not just fruit, it's all commodities really that needed a jacked up Transnet and a jacked up port. And I think there's been some good there've been some good sessions held, and I believe the management at Transnet are aware, and they are doing their utmost to make sure that the bottlenecks and the issues that we have seen in the past are addressed, and that we will have a smoother season coming forward. We've just gone through a strike at the ports, which had a devastating effect for amongst others the berry industry, and I think luckily it was, in the grander scheme of things, it was sorted out fairly quickly, and there was the whole time there was good communication between the various role players, and I'd like to believe that the coming season we will see an improvement on the operations in the port.
I see the Fikile Mbulula is very active on radio stations about the transport system being bettered, and so we just hope that all those promises are being pulled through.
Yeah, I think, a couple of years ago, I already mentioned that I was concerned about the logistics, but I was talking more on-farm logistics, cold storage, packing, all that kind of stuff, because we are growing, especially in the deciduous industry, and obviously in the citrus industry, and we've seen in the berry industry, we're growing industry. And we need to make sure that logistics can keep up to pace with that. Little did we know that we were going to have to get involved in the non-farm and the non-farm areas like we have. But it's, once again, it's an area that we are, as an industry, that's what our producers are looking for us to get involved in. And it's a non-traditional area, and we're going to see more of those kind of activities happening, whereby we are being involved in sorting out non-traditional problems.
But if, like you said, as big as the learning curve it was for them, it must have been for the industry bodies as well.
Yeah, first of all, you've got to find out who you must consult with, who you must deal with, and and then you've got different organizations, and everyone's running to the same person, and they get overrun by the same request or the same concerns and stuff. And I think there's been good synergies between the various commodity structures, and then say Transnet and the Transnet port terminals. We've had good support from the local, the Western Cape government, and
they're very supportive.
Yeah, so I think everyone's seen the big picture, the urgency of it. I always say the proof will be in the pudding, and it's not all going to run smoothly next year, but I think there certainly will be an improvement on how we're going to do it. And it's a real danger for our industries when your market starts saying, well, if you guys can't produce it in time or deliver it on time, then we're going to go somewhere else. I mean, it has a massive industry effect.
Yeah, they don't really care about our issues. They just said, well, we want the stuff.
Yeah, so they all they're worried is when they can have it on their shelves, and if we can't deliver, then we'll go looking somewhere else. That's why we need to make sure that we have a product of the best quality, delivered at the right time, and then we'll be fine.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that the local South African people don't understand, is that the market where it's going to, they don't care about the South African history and the politics and the pay increases. They just want a good quality product that's in time on the shelf, and if you don't deliver on that, it doesn't.
That's quite a reality. They're very concerned about the social issues, the environmental issues from their suppliers, and I think there we have structures in place, we have systems in place that we ensure that we are sourcing and we are providing from ethically sourced and ethically produced
and
sustainable produced suppliers. And I'd like to believe that that South Africa is a leader in that sphere. I mean, we've got a SIZA that has developed the ethical auditing standard, and it really, SIZA has really gained traction throughout the world. If you look at the number of audits that you have to do ethically, and the role that SIZA played in creating a South African standard, and combining various standards to fall into a single standard like SIZA, and I believe the cost saving that it has done, that it has created for producers, it's phenomenal, and we are really getting good feedback from the market on SIZA's performance and on the role that a SIZA plays in the market, and we're just getting more and more requests for other commodities to be part of the SIZA standard. I mean, we've just had the cotton industries interested, the local supermarket industries are inquiring about the SIZA standard, and you know, it's a real plus for the South African industries to have an organisation like SIZA or standard like SIZA there, because you know, it would be a nightmare if you had to do so many different standards for your different markets. And that was the idea of creating a SIZA, that you have one standard that everyone buys into. It should bring down the costs, and yeah, I think we pretty much there, and we're getting there. And I'd like to, you know, we've got it over all the commodities, the fruit South Africa commodities, and yeah, I think I'd just like to encourage. I keep on encouraging producers to see SIZA as the friend and not the enemy. You know, often people are still seeing SIZA not fighting for the South African industry. That's not SIZA's job. SIZA's job is to ensure that we have a single standard, but we cannot allow fruit that has not been ethically produced or sourced leaving South Africa, because it's just not on.
For sure. You mentioned, I actually wanted to ask you about Fruit South Africa. What is Fruit South Africa, and how does Hortgro fit into Fruit South Africa?
Okay, so Louise, often you find that there are common issues that commodities have, and we always heard that when you go and speak to government or the Minister of Agriculture or anybody that we feel that we need to lobby or speak to about an issue, their first reaction was, well, why are you coming? And then we've got citrus coming, and we've got subtrops coming, and we've got table grapes, and everyone comes on their own, and they come and bombard us with this stuff. And we as Hortgro, the Citrus Growers Association, subtropical growers, the table grape industry, and the Fresh Produce Exporters Forum, and now recently the Berry ZA, have joined together, and we created Fruit South Africa, where we discuss matters of common interest, and where we'll, if need be, we will lobby support, or we will negotiate or communicate via Fruit South Africa as one voice. Something like the ports was one of them. You know, we're not necessarily different. Each commodity is different. Each agricultural sector is different. You know, obviously fruit's different from beef. It's different from a lot of things, grain and all that. So everyone's got their own agenda on certain things. But you know, at least let the fruit that have the most common issues in fruit, let us talk about them on a round table and use that platform to negotiate what we need to get out of it.
What would you say is going forward, obviously with the big sustainability and everything like that, what's the big technologies that you guys are looking at implementing with regards to that?
Well, I think as far as the deciduous industries, there are various production technologies that you can implement. Looking at water usage, looking at chemical usage, you're looking at fertilizer usage. A lot of the things that we do, in the end, we're working with a product that needs soft hands. So I believe we're fairly far from getting technology to do a lot of the labor work, and I believe we've got a great labor force. We have got a willing labor force. If you look at some of our the countries or other countries, they are leaving fruit on the trees because they don't have enough labor, especially since COVID. And I'd like to believe that we have a competitive advantage because we have a big labor force to do the work that you're going to get done very difficultly by technology. I mean, there's nothing that can be picked, an apple or a pear. There's no technology that can pick that. But when you look at quality and when you look at in that area, then I believe technology and use of resources, other resources, water, I believe that there's a role for technology in that. You just look at something like drones, which is not to do any labor, but more to give you an insight into the quality of the plant, the plants that you're working with. You look at drones, the drone technology and satellite technology that's helping you with water usage.
Do you use any of those things?
So we use Fruit Look, yeah, and we use that, and then we use for specifically for your water usage and for the growth of your growth potential of your plants. Water usage, we are using probes, we are using, gone are the days of taking a spade and digging a hole, and there's technologies that can help us use water more efficiently. And then obviously in pack sheds, there's technology that's helping there as far as quality is concerned, being able to take photographs of the fruit as it's moving across the line. So I believe that in that way we are able to use technology. But farming, intensive farming like we have, it's feet on the ground. It's you need to
know what's going on in the orchards.
You need to know what's going on in the orchards. It's not this extensive maize, wheat, whereby you can use more. I think they are further with technology in that way, and we are catching up with technology that Fruit Look uses and stuff. But in the end, when it comes to the micromanagement, we still rely on human activity to help us there.
When you said that you studied you did apprenticeships under these old big names, and if you go back in the family history, how would you think they would have thought about today with how things are being done on the farms?
I think things. There's certainly been when my great-grandfather came here, he had no rootstocks, and the technology in plant material and stuff like that was, they were the pioneers. And it was trial and error, and up up to a point, we still are doing a lot of research as far as rootstocks are concerned. We have got much. There are a lot of interaction between countries, between different institutions as far as rootstocks are concerned, and stuff like that. So I think there we will improve. And I think certainly water usage, the way you measure your water usage and the amount of water you're using, I think is certainly far the one thing that we really are much further along. I remember when I came here, we still had flood irrigation.
We were in the States now and they still do flood irrigation.
And when you've got limited resources, as we know we have in water resources, and we know we have in South Africa, then you cannot afford to do that. We came here also, we had sprinkler irrigation. So it's all moved to micro and drip irrigation with specific measurements and all that. So I think that's quite an advancement that you have. You have lots of advancements in your pack sheds and your cooling regimes. But if I think back the years that I've done here, there's nothing has changed as far as how much time you spend in the orchards and what you gather from there. That's the thing. And then picking, there are different ways to pick, different platforms and stuff, but you still need a hand to pick, and the machine's not going to be able
and
to
post-harvest technology, I mean, if you think that our fruit gets picked here and it sometimes gets eaten only 6 weeks later, I mean, it's phenomenal that you can keep fruit fresh for that length of time. So over the years, there must have been quite a lot of changes in the post-harvest technology and new ways of preserving the fruit better.
Yeah, I believe that's an area that's continuously having research done on. We need, as you said, we need to make sure that what we're picking today is still fresh in a couple of months' time. We know that the cooling technology has improved. The CA storage has improved. If I read the book that about them, the story of my great-grandfather and the way they cooled and they packed and stuff like that was all pioneering stuff, and it was with brine water and this and that, and it's and with that the research has gone on, and the need for us to have optimal cooling has driven the need for the research to be done. So I think it's something that the cooling systems, the way we do it, will continue to be researched, and it will. I mean, we'll never. Cooling is cooling. It's just how you do it. There's. I mean, we use electricity. We've got to use less electricity. So the emphasis is maybe, okay, we know how to cool, but how can we cool with less electricity? And perception that maybe it's doing damage to the fruit. So we need to. Those are the kind of things that might have. There might be more emphasis on that.
Yes.
Kind of thing.
So a reasonably big question: if you, with the knowledge you have in the situation where you are in your career, your farming career and your career with Hortgro, what do you think is the single biggest challenge that the fruit industry, South African fruit industry, is facing at the moment? It's a big one.
Yeah, I think climate change has been there, has always been top of the list. Up for the last couple of years, when we have strategic discussions at Hortgro, we ask what are the challenges, and we've had in the South African context, climate change has always been top of that, and the effect it's going to have on the cultivation of the current crop, and then the areas of cultivation. Are we going to have apples in Grabo, or are they only going to be able to be farmed in the Kowaboka field? I've seen here on our farm, when we bought a farm, our neighboring farm, we had apples on that. And at the time, it was an apple called a Royal Gala, they did well. But as new strains came on and it became warmer and warmer, and our Royal Gala were getting paler and paler, and the new ones were getting redder and redder, we just weren't in the market anymore. So we are not an apple.
It didn't colour enough.
Didn't colour enough, yeah. And at the beginning, when all the strains weren't as colourful as they are now, as you know, the technology to create, to develop or to find new redder strains and stuff, there's also more technology going in there. So climate change is definitely an issue. And then suddenly you get a year like last year where logistics jumps right to the top of the list. Climate change is still there, but I think we also adapt fairly quickly. So we've adapted to how we irrigate, you know, and how we cool and stuff like that. So I'm not saying climate change has gone away, but suddenly there's this new logistics is an issue. Are we going to have enough ships? Are we having enough containers? Do we have enough cold storage in our? Do we have enough power in our country to look after the fruit that we are producing? We know that our power grids are under severe pressure, and there are some areas not or close by that can't expand anything to do with, or can't expand their businesses because they don't have enough power to put up cold storage, let alone putting up power, having enough power to drive pumps or anything like that. So between those two, I'd say they are the top ones. We need to also we in South Africa, we need to look at the role that government plays in creating an enabling environment for agriculture. And sometimes it's up and then down and up and down, and we as Hortgro need to assist them. It's not necessarily on a priority always from a government point of view. We have good relationships with government officials, and I believe it's something that we as industry organisations need to assist them to come to their full potential, to assist producers to have this enabling environment that we have. And I think things like cultivars, that's fairly sorted out. The technology is not a challenge, it's an exciting challenge. It's not a limiting challenge. And then what's also stuck its head out, maybe this year, last year, is the sustainability of agriculture. The input costs are the economic sustainability of agriculture. Input costs are skyrocketing, and the amount that the consumer is willing to pay for food is not keeping up with that, unfortunately, and it has the potential to put many businesses out of business because they just can't keep that the input cost. We need to address the consumer's perception that they can continue paying below inflation rate for food. People are going to have to start spending, and more of that needs to trickle down, filter down into the primary producer, because he's the one taking the risks and spending a lot of money on input costs that are growing exponentially. I'd like to say.
Would it be safe, or okay, how can I put this? Do you think that South African growers, fresh produce growers, can afford to grow less? Or should they keep expanding the volumes? If let's say everybody gets together and says, all right, instead of exporting 70 million cartons of grapes, let's bring it down to 50 and create a bit of a demand.
I think if we can change that around and say, okay, we don't necessarily have to produce less, but let's produce better.
Yes.
If it means that we are going to produce slightly less, then that has a knock-on effect. I think we must make sure that we produce the right quality. And some people won't have to do anything. They can carry on producing the same volume. Other producers might have to decrease their volume to get a better size or to make more focused on something. Remember, we are our business is involved in, the food, we're in the food game. And there are more people that are globally, more people. They need to eat. And we are producing food in a declining resource. So I think the declining resources, water, the general climate change, the availability of land, might naturally create less supply. But if you're a good producer and you can produce a quality product, you don't need to produce less. There are other factors that might sort out that problem. And I believe in the South African context, in a fruit context, we need to encourage our South African consumer to eat more fruit, vegetables, healthy, and I believe there's a massive market in Africa, in South Africa, for our product.
That's what I'm going to ask now.
Yeah, specifically, we need to sort out a few logistic issues, but I think there's a massive market, and we also need to encourage our consumers, local consumers, to eat more of our product. And you often get the comment, yeah, but you only export the best. Well, you export all the best fruit. And I always say, we only export the best, but we don't export all the best. Now, I really believe in that. I mean, not all of our best fruit, a lot of it gets sold locally. I have very little control over the processes that happen between when I deliver a best product to a buyer or supermarket or to a market.
A local market.
A local market or any market. I've got very little control of how they handle that for the product to look like a best product from South Africa.
But what could be put into place to do that? Because obviously Mrs. Jones walking into the shop.
I think it's certainly there is a bit of education on handling of fruit. Not everybody knows that how a fruit bruises.
Yeah, the other day when I was in, if I can call it fruit and veg, in the new one in Worcester, there were guys and they were literally throwing the cartons of avos. And I stopped them. I said, "You can't do that." Yeah. And I called the manager over and said, "Well, you want me to pay 15 or 20 rand for an avo, and then you handle the fruit like that? You can't do that."
Yeah. And you get some supermarkets in South Africa where you can walk in and you get fantastic quality because their handling protocols are in place from farm gate all the way to the consumer, and there you get good quality fruit. So we need to we need to educate, and there's quite a big educating role that we need to play, and the consumer needs to ask questions, and like you did there, I think it's very easy. You don't a product that can, a soft product, any soft fruit, it's not going to last if that. And
even an avocado that's
yeah,
hard when it's green,
yeah.
and by the time it's ripe, you've got a big black spot inside.
Yeah. So for me, that's critical, because I believe the South Africans are big fruit. They are big fruit eaters. They eat a lot of fruit. They and you know, we've got this thing. If we could just encourage each South African to eat an extra pear or apple a day, then we won't have enough fruit to start exporting the amount that we're doing now, which will help the whole process. You know, then your question that you asked about, should we be producing less? Then I say no. We just need to make sure that our markets, that we need to create new markets, profitable markets, and we need to encourage them to eat fruit. You know, if I look at the markets that we have now compared to, you mentioned earlier in my starting days, but I mean, we suddenly got, then it was Europe, and now we've got the Middle East, the Far East, we've got the States, we've got a lot of new markets that have been opened.
And Africa.
And Africa.
It's grown a lot.
Africa's a massive market. And that is other countries, other continents and countries are eyeing Africa, and Africa's on our doorstep. But we need to look at our logistics into Africa. It's not easy doing business, but it's very, very, very manageable. And
but if you look at the issues in the ports to get the stuff to the traditional markets, those issues might be less.
not necessary.
Safety factors and all those things.
But but there's a big package that we need to look at, and that's why an organisation like Hortgro, one of its main functions is market access, new market access, and then market retention, and that's why we're spending a lot of our levy money on that. And producers are happy with that because they see the value of that.
Okay, another question. Worldwide and in South Africa, the average age of farmers is quite an advanced age. And present company excluded. I was just wondering if you would you, in your personal capacity, would you encourage young people to join the agricultural sector and specifically the fresh produce sector? What would your thoughts be on that?
I certainly would. I think, you know, we have got a very challenging sector, but a very satisfying sector too. If you like working in the agricultural sector, if that's with plants and with in that environment, then most definitely it's you know, my son wants to come farming, and I mean, it's up to him to decide. He's got the means to. He must first.
Are you going to send him for apprenticeship as
He
well?
will have to do an apprenticeship. Yeah, it's not a case of just arriving on the farm and saying, I'm here, you know, the boss's son is here. Things have changed a bit. But Louise, definitely I would encourage people, because it's not just the farming these days, it's the
A lot of other service providers
there's a whole value chain with agriculture. And you see, and specifically in South Africa, you can look across the spectrum. New entrants don't necessarily. It's not about coming owning a farm, but there are a lot of value chain options that people must investigate, and I think it's an exciting area to work in. And once again, remember I said earlier on, we are in a declining resource and a growing market. Theoretically, we've got to find out how to use that to our advantage. It doesn't always work that way, but I think that's an area that's a challenge that and I think that the younger generation should be happy with, to see it as a challenge and how they can do it. Because we can grow fruit, we have the expertise, we have the support structures within our industry structures, and I think it gives you a good. There's a good way of life too, and I certainly would encourage it.
How can we increase the awareness to younger people about not to come and work in agriculture, but to understand where their food is coming from? Because you get all these protests overseas that the farming must stop, and the vegan movement, and the this and the this and the that. But
I think we need to continue telling the good stories about farming. Today we spoke a lot about the challenges and the issues that we have in farming, and they are there with any business, not just with farming, but they are there all over. There are challenges in the mining industry too, because they also have logistics issues and consumption issues and what have you. And we need to challenge the next generation farmers to help them to find solutions for those kinds of things. And that's why I say we, as a Hortgro, as a Department of Agriculture, provincially and nationally, we need to create, I keep on using the word, an enabling environment for agriculture to flourish. We need to take away the issues that farmers don't really have control of. We have very little control of, or help with those issues, and then help them flourish in the area that they are good at. And so I think we need to keep on telling the good stories. We need to ensure that it is economically viable. And like any business, farming has its ups and downs. And I think our industry is in a bit of a down because we've had the logistics, we've had markets were a bit tough this year. But in 1893, when my great-grandfather came here, they had a much more difficult time. And they created a very enabling environment for the next generations.
So I have a question for you, and that is, we've spoken a lot about South African issues and so on. And I know in the past that you were the chairman of the World Apple and Pear Association for some time. And that must have got you into meetings and discussions with people, producers from around the world. Their perceptions and how are their problems different to ours or similar to ours? What vibe did you get from them? What feeling did you get from them?
Yeah, I think it was an interesting time. Probably the most interesting was when we had virtual discussions, and then it was quite difficult when you've got all these different nationalities and different languages happening. And as a chairman, then it was quite difficult to control the meeting. But anyway, that was it.
They say the Zoom meetings is the modern seances. Hi, John, can you hear me? Somebody there?
But certainly, especially in the last couple of years, we've seen the last meeting we had was in May, where the European industries give their crop estimates, and everyone was talking about input costs rising. The Dutch, the French, the Americans, and they were talking about this. Some of our producers are not going to make it this year. They're not going to make any money. They're not going to make any profits. So it is a it's a worldwide tendency. So we're not alone. And then when we spoke about things like shipping, Chile, New Zealand, they're in worse positions than we are. It might not feel like it and might not solve our problem, but yeah, the shipping fiasco hit everybody. And I said early on, we need to cherish our labor. You know, working with people, has its challenges. We need to cherish our labor and the fact that we've got labor available. Often labor that's worked on farms for generations, and that it's actually a competitive advantage, I believe. So when the people are talking about, oh, they don't have pickers for this variety or this crop or that, then I know we don't have that issue. So when it comes to all those kind of things, then we are definitely not alone. We are alone, in fact, in the area where you're talking about assistance from government. I'm talking about maybe subsidies, things like that. Where there we don't have as much support as those countries have from their departments. But when it comes to pesticide use, any chemical use, when it comes to fertilizer use, anything environmental, we're all in the same boat there, and they've got more with some things they've got more challenges than we actually have in South Africa. What we are finding, I believe, is there's more of a nationalism approach. Use local, buy local before you buy imported, and we need to address that, or we need to be aware of that. You are finding more and more land in overseas and being needed for housing, for that kind of thing. So land is becoming a scarcer commodity, which we still have reasonably enough. You look at your competition between for water. I wouldn't say we've got less competition, but it's I'd say less restricted. So once again, we need to learn from that to realize where it can end up. We need to listen to the restrictions that they're having and the effect it has, to see where we possibly can end up one day, as far as use of land, use of water, pesticide, chemicals. We know we know because we export to those countries, so we have to adhere to them, and we need to cherish our labour. I think, because we have them, and we've got a massive labour force. We've got massive unemployment, so we need to be careful that we don't, that we use them effectively, and yeah.
So South Africans tend to very often, as you said, harp on the negative, and it's all doom and gloom and so on. And then when you look at things from an international perspective like that, you can see, well, actually, there's some things that we have more. We have some challenges that are more, but we also have some things that are in our favour.
The grass is not always green on the other side.
Exactly.
And I think as South African producers, we tend to harp on the negatives, and I think sometimes not everyone, I don't want to generalize, but we need to sit back and think of the positives that we are getting out of the industry as producers, from not just from a from a financial point, but from a way of life point. I mean, it's no use, only harping on financial, and you've got a terrible lifestyle because of where you live. Or we've got to be. I think as South Africans, we've got to be positive. It's not always easy, but I do think we need to tell the positive stories. We need to live the positive things, and who knows, with the challenges that we've got, when they do get solved and they do get sorted out, and we need to be part of the solution, then there's nothing. We live in a great place, and agriculture is the same. I've said now, we've all got the similar challenges agriculturally. So as an agriculturist, I can't say, right, I'm going to up and leave here and go farm somewhere else with less challenges. It's not going to happen. The market's the same. The expectations, the legislation is more, or it's stricter. And so I really believe that we and it comes back to the young people, and it's everyone's decision if they can make a better living doing something else. But I believe that agriculture, and specifically in our industry, the deciduous industry, has got lots of benefits to it, and it's got lots of opportunities that we can use in the future.
So another question, I'm going to turn it personal here. And as the son of a family which was one of the founders of the South African fruit industry, having grown up on a farm, I'm sure you did have a choice whether you wanted to come farming or not. And maybe you considered doing something else, I don't know. But you are here today. Would you have had it any other way, or are you where you want to be?
I believe that I certainly have made the right career choice in my life. Obviously, I had the resource to live it out. I did a commerce degree. My passion is finance. It's economics. When you work in this environment, you can live that out. The technical side is something you learn, or I had the support of one of my brothers having been involved or studied in the technical area, and and the opportunities that I had to raise my kids. I married an English rose, a lady that came from England, and I'd like to believe that she feels the same. She came to South Africa, and I believe that she has also embraced the line of work that I've been doing. So obviously the agriculture is different in different commodities. I'm not sure. I'm not a cattle person, or so I would never have gone to that kind of thing. And this is, if I read the book about my great grandfather, and I think I read the stuff that he got involved in, and I often think when he was involved in the beginning of the deciduous fruit board and that kind of stuff, and I think, well, maybe we were similar in that way. So I've got no regrets at doing what I'm doing. I have told my kids that they shouldn't see the farm as a default position, meaning that just because it's here, they can come here. If they've got a passion for something else, my daughter's passionate. She's studying education. She wants to be a teacher. She's passionate about it. so I've got no qualms about her going in that. I'm quite happy that she's going in that direction, because I believe that it's an area that's much needed in South Africa. And it's up to them to, as I said, they mustn't see the farm as a default position. And we're not expecting anything from any of them as far as coming back to the business. We run it as a business. So if none of the family want to take over, we will run it professionally. We will get professional managers to continue with running the business. So and I've been able to work with my two brothers. Very few people.
It is rare.
Can say they work with family. Traditionally the family businesses break up after, I think, the third generation. They have the ability to split up. That's what the experts say. We have never had that issue.
That's wonderful.
We see, we have the same vision, we have the same, and we always say we remember my father well, my grandfather well, and it comes back to the respect and the admiration that we had for the work they did in setting up our business, and we've managed to expand it from there. And I'm very happy for where I'm sitting today.
Thank you.
And if you obviously the agricultural field is so big, if you could choose something else, you keep this as your, but if you could venture into something else in agriculture, what would it be?
Well, look, when I started, then, we were still single channel marketing, so it was only a unifruco, so the whole marketing angle wasn't, as it is now, integrated in farming businesses. It possibly could be more on a marketing side that I would venture into. If it's non-agriculture, people have often said, "No, why?" Then I might have wanted to become a lawyer.
Okay,
but but that I only worked out
later
on. So when I was deciding on my career, I wasn't even thinking about that. So after how many years, 30 years farming, it's part of you, and I'm quite happy that it's had its challenges, but like I say, if I'd been in any other industry, then who knows, they would also have their challenges. Coming back to where I might have been, if I read my great-grandfather's memoirs, he started as a trader for an English company, and he worked in Persia, Iran, and just before he finished there, he was offered as a representative of the company he worked for a concession for an oil field, as I said, quite a vast oil field for £10,000. But there was a lot of red tape that went about it. And then he met my great-grandmother, and he didn't want to take her back to the east, so he wanted to come. They said, the company that he worked for said, "Don't worry about oil, we want fruit." And so if he'd
been an oil baron,
if he continued with his quest of acquiring this oil field, who knows where we would have ended up then. But that's just it's a reality that it happened. But
could have been called Mohammed.
We see it as a bit of a fun thing to do, to reminisce about a bit.
Well, thank you so much for chatting to us. Is there anything more you wanted to add, or are you happy to conclude?
No, I think I've spoken about the concept that you are busy with. I think it gives people the opportunity to talk about the challenges, but I do think that it also gives us an opportunity to think a bit about the positives and the positive side of our business. You know, we've spoken a lot about the technical side. I think the social side that certainly fruit farmers, because of their big labor force, and often many of them living on the farm, that we play in social upliftment of our communities, I think is an area that is often not seen by the broader community. You know, we operate small municipalities on our farms. Bigger farms, they almost operate big municipalities on their farms. And I think those are some of the, out of necessity, those are the good news stories. I think those are the stories, the social responsibility that we have created in our industries is often overlooked. And I think we need to make sure that those stories get out there. And
we intend to pursue those.
Yeah.
I have a number of those
Yeah.
people that are people that I would like to speak
And you
to.
know, and often you can have the best story, but we know what news sells, but it's there, and I think we should continue talking about them. And I think the opportunity just to talk about our industry, and once you've got many more people in different spheres of our industry, you'll get a great overall picture of what the deciduous industry is all about. So thank you very much for your initiative and for the time.